But we have the article by Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Maharaj. However, it's on my phone, and I don't have it on my iPad. Does anybody have it on their phone?
My device is open.
It's on Vishuddha Chaitanya Vani.
I have the Srila Chaitanya Vani.
On your phone? Yeah. Have it?
You're much better. You'll get there faster than I will.
We'll see, Braj. It's a race.
I didn't even know what to look at.
Jai Saparikar Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiyo Ki Jai Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai Jai Shri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai Jai Nishri Nishinga Bhagavan Ki Jai Jai Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Mahabhagavad Srila Gaurkishore Das Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhaum Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Shri Gauriya Vedanta Charya Baladev Vijayabhushan Prabhu Ki Jai Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai Srila Narottam Srinivas Yamananda Prabhu Trai Ki Jai Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Shata Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Srila Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Di Gaur Parsada Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sigaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srila Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Kshetra Dham Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Govardhan Dvarshavanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dham Ki Jai Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Radha Gopinath Radha Madan Mohan Jiyo Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Radha Shyama Sundar Radha Raman Radha Damodar Jiyo Ki Jai Shrimati Lalita Vishaka Adi Ashtasaki Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Rupa Manjari Rati Manjari Adi Manjari Vrinda Ki Jai Shrimati Brinda Devi Ki Jai Shrimati Purnamasi Yoga Maya Devi Ki Jai Shri Gopishwar Mahadev Ki Jai Sarva Bhishta Pradata Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiyo Ki Jai Bhakti Vignanasham Shringadev Ki Jai Bhakta Pravara Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Charo Dham Charo Sampradaya Charo Acharya Ki Jai Shri Shri Madhvacharya Transcendental Tirubhav Mahamahotsav Titi Ki Jai Purna Pragya Madhvacharya Transcendental Disappearance Day Festival Ki Jai Shri Madhvacharya Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Vishva Vaishnav Raj Sabha Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadhutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Tishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Hare Hare. My Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Diksha and Siksha Gurudevs Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahans Asto Tarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My Dandavat pranams to all my Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga and my Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis.
You got it there?
Oh, this is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it went. The screen went off, and then.
Whoops.
Gotcha. Okay. What if the screen goes off?
It's not locked, so you should just press this button.
Yeah, and then it'll come back.
Yeah.
Okay. So Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, he gave a darshan and a class on February 5th, 2017 and February 8th, 2014. So they've combined that together in this article about Sri Madhvacharya, who of course, he is our main acharya for the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Mahaprabhu accepted Madhvacharya's line. And therefore Madhvacharya was greatly blessed. Also, there's a very extensive biography in English. It's actually a book, which one devotee from ISKCON, I think, he produced it some years back. I've read that, but there are so many details there about Madhvacharya's preaching and so forth. So this is more of a abbreviated little biographical presentation. He begins by saying, Today is a very special day. It is the disappearance day of Sri Madhvacharya. He was also known as Ananda Tirtha and Purna Pragya. Those are two more names that Madhvacharya was known as. And also in his childhood, he also received another name. Externally speaking, Madhvacharya appeared in 1238 AD near Udupi in Pajak Kshetra to Sri Narayan Bhatta, his father. Narayan Bhatta was also referred as Madhya Geha, and his mother Vedavati. So Madhvacharya's family was poverty-stricken, and before him, all his siblings had passed away prematurely. Thus, in order to beget a healthy child, Vedavati observed a strict vow of sustaining herself only on milk for 2 years. So that proves that you can live just on milk. And as a result, she was blessed with Madhvacharya as her son. I've been there to his birthplace. If you go, huh?
Did you go again with him?
No, but it's right near Udupi.
Yeah.
So you just take a bus and get to that place. Very beautiful, sweet place. And they also have a mutt there. Madhvacharya's mutt is also there, very nicely built and everything.
How far is that?
Not far. I don't remember. Maybe like a half an hour. Yeah. Their family's worshipable deity was Sri Ananta Padmanabha, holding a conch, wheel, club, and lotus. And so his father named Madhvacharya Vasudev, because the family deity is Vasudev, Krishna. In reality, he was a Shakti-avesh avatar, a personality empowered by the Lord to accomplish a certain task. And being an incarnation of Bhima and Hanuman, both together, he displayed many feats of strength and mystical perfections. As a child, while playing in a nearby forest, Vasudev killed the snake demon Maniman by crushing him with the big toe of his left foot. Don't let Narottam hear that, Jai Govinda. Yes. Now Vasudev's father had accrued some debt from his brother. You know, they were very poor. His parents were very poor. So he accrued a debt from his own brother. Now, as a result, Vasudev's uncle showed up one day demanding his money be returned, and he threatened to give up his body by fasting to death unless his father was able to return it. So to settle the debt, Vasudev converted some tamarind seeds into authentic coins, and he addressed his uncle, "You please take the requisite coins and settle your dues."
Excuse me, is Vasudev another name at this point for Madhvacharya?
Yeah. That's what he was named also by his father, because their deity was Vishnu deity. As a 5 years old, he proclaimed to his father, "I will refute the philosophy of Shankar Acharya." Then his father, who was elderly and used to carry a walking stick, so he said, "Shankar Acharya is Lord Shankar himself. And if you are indeed to refute his philosophy, then the stick that I am holding will turn into a fruit-bearing tree." So straight away, Vasudeva planted that stick into the earth, pronouncing, "O stick, if I can refute Shankar's philosophy, then immediately become a fruit-bearing tree." Vasudev's words came to pass as the stick instantly grew into an Ashwata tree, sacred fig tree, and it bore fruits. Seeing this, his father was astounded and convinced that indeed his son was not an ordinary personality. Well, that's 3 pretty good proofs. Once, a famed wrestler challenged him So Madhvacharya firmly placed his big toe on the earth, and he invited the wrestler to try and lift it. But despite exerting great force, the wrestler failed. Now I also have a little pastime to tell that I told to Gurudev, well, not to Gurudev, in front of Gurudev, in Keshavji Gaudiya Math. You know, it was one of these appearance or disappearance days of Madhvacharya.
About somebody trying to move your toe?
No, not about me, but I was telling it in front of Gurudev. So, because I had read that book, that Madhvacharya book that I mentioned, had so many details. And so I told the story. This is one wrestler's story, but Madhvacharya could fight against many wrestlers simultaneously and defeat them all. There's various narrations of his feats of strength in that book. So one of them is, and I told this in front of Gurudev, that Madhvacharya, he challenged this group of wrestlers that I am going to sit here, sitting, and I will chant Harinam, and you can choke my neck and try to make me stop, chant Harinam. So they all started trying to choke his neck. And he kept chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So I loved that Gurudev really enjoyed that one. They could not make him stop. See, now it came to this page. You know, you can set your settings. Oh, no, I just pressed the button. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Now, here's the story of finding the Udupi Krishna deity. Do you know who that deity is? It doesn't say it in this article. But do you know where that deity came from and who that deity was worshipped by? You don't know?
I just know the story of the little boy behind, but he's not the one that...
No, it's different. So, I'll first read this and then you can hear. Once a merchant ship, you know, because Udupi is near to the ocean. The devotees, when we would stay in Udupi, I've been there a couple times. Devotees would go there in the winter because it's beautiful and warm there. And also they have all this panchakarma, so devotees go there for a couple of the cold winter months and they take therapies and all of that, you know. And so we would go to the temple every single day and see this deity in the temple. I'll tell about that. And but the ocean is right nearby, and there's a bus right from where we were in the city, near to the temple, and we would take that and we'd be there at the ocean in like 15 minutes. So I think it's about 11 miles. So Madhvacharya was there on the ocean front. And at that time he had already started his mat and everything. So this merchant ship, fully loaded with cargo, it was stuck and unable to move. You know, but it doesn't say here that it came from Dwarka. That ship was coming from Dwarka. Yes. So, Madhvacharya was nearby at the time. And he used just a few gestures. He managed to bring the ship safely to shore. So, who is Madhvacharya incarnation of? Vayu. So this ship had gotten stuck somehow in the water, and they were on the ship and they were yelling, and Madhvacharya was on the shore, quite a distance. So what he did was, with his own chadar, he waved it in a certain way, and gradually it lifted up the ship and brought it into the shore. So they were saved, because otherwise they could have died. Yes, so the captain very much appreciated this timely help and offered Madhvacharya anything among the precious items that they were carrying on the ship. But Madhvacharya told the sailor that he would like to take some of the gopi chandan because it was an item of daily use for him and his disciples. So out of many blocks, I mean, they had like huge boulders of Gopi Chandan, you know. So out of many blocks, Madhvacharya chose 2. The captain happily gifted the Gopi Chandan to Madhvacharya. And while he was carrying them, one block of Gopi Chandan broke open. And by the way, it doesn't say this, but there were quite a few sailors all together lifting these boulders, right? And then, when it was on the shore, Madhvacharya lifted both of them onto his shoulders simultaneously. Then, while he was carrying them, one block of Gopi Chandan broke open, and a beautiful deity of Gopal, holding a butter-churning rod in his hand, appeared, which was installed by Madhvacharya in Sri Udupi Kshetra. This deity is not in the form of Ladu Gopal, but he's young. So you know the story of that deity is that in Dwarka, Rukmini Devi and the queens, they were lamenting. And also they were lamenting because they could see that Krishna was always completely captured by Srimati Radhika and the gopis. He would wake up in the middle of the night and he would be crying and his pillow would be full of tears. And every night, and they felt, we don't have any real, we must not have any real love for him, because somehow these gopis have captured Krishna completely, right? So in this way, the queens of Dwarka were always wondering what kind of love they had for Krishna. And then Krishna's own mother Devaki, she was lamenting one day that, oh, I never saw your sweet childhood pastimes, because Krishna left when he was just born. So she did not see and have, darshan of all of his sweet childhood pastimes. And she was crying. And Krishna said, oh Maya, don't worry. I will show them to you. And then in the presence of the queens, in the presence of Rohini Devi and all, Krishna showed his childhood Gopal form. And how he started to play mischief, and then he took some yogurt and smeared it on the face of his mother and did little pastimes like this. And everyone was completely, floating away in the waves of this Vatsalya prem, these moods. And then he reverted back to his form. So then, at that time, Rukmini Devi, who had seen this form of Krishna, she instructed, I want a deity exactly like this form that we just saw. And then, I don't remember who it was that carved the deity, but they carved the deity like a small boy. And in front of him is a churning rod that they used for churning yogurt, right? He's holding that. It kind of looks like he's holding it right like this. Almost looks like a sannyasi danda, but it's a churning rod. And so that deity was worshipped by Rukmini directly. And so over thousands of years, it happened that that deity somehow came inside of that Gopi Chandan boulder, right? And that's the deity that came to Madhvacharya. He chose that Gopi Chandan, and then as he was walking, then the boulder cracked open, and there was the deity of Krishna. It doesn't say here, but the other boulder cracked open, and it was a deity of Balaram. And that deity of Balaram was installed right there on the ocean front. There's a small temple there of that deity. Yeah. So then Madhvacharya, he began walking, holding the deity on his shoulder, all the way from there to Udupi, like I said, about 11 miles. And then, along the way, he composed most beautiful Sanskrit poetry and prayers glorifying Krishna. So that is one of the writings that Madhvacharya did. Yes. So he installed that deity in Udupi. And you know, the town of Udupi, I mean, it's called the Udupi Krishna temple. That's what the temple is known as, Udupi Krishna. And the deity is known as Udupi Krishna. And everyone in the town, they come to see that deity. And it's a small, not a very big temple. Because Madhvacharya, he didn't want to give any competition to the other, you know, huge, beautiful structures of temples like that are in South India, like Sri Rangam, you know, and Tirupati, and these temples and their ancient deities. So he just kept it small. And so that temple, where the temple was built, then at the present day, there's a circular area, which is like a square, right? And then there's shops all along, and then outside of that, then there's housing structures and so forth. But that deity is not taken on procession, but they have another functional deity considered to be expansion of Udupi Krishna, and that deity is taken on a Rath Yatra every night in that square. You've been there? You've seen?
Yeah, with the elephant,
Yeah, and instruments and everything, every night. Yeah, and anyway, it starts to tell a little bit, he starts to tell a little bit about how the deity is worshipped, and then I'll add some more. So, there is one unique feature of the temple. Sri Gopal is not put to rest. Shayana. He's never put to rest. Like they would with the deities by closing the temple door, like that. But the window to the deity room always remains open. So anyone can have the darshan of the Lord at any time. They have a picture here of that deity. They have many, many pictures and calendar pictures of Udupi Krishna deity. And they have very elaborate dresses and decoration, and according to the day of the year, like that. Like sometimes on Gita Jayanti, then they have him like with horses in front of him, like he's on a chariot and everything like that, you know. It's very sweet. So actually you can only have darshan of that deity through a window that's about this big, right? And people wait in line and wait in line and wait in line until they get there. And if they have a crowd of people, then they have someone who's telling you that, okay, now you have to go, okay, now you go. And you get just a few seconds to have the darshan, maybe like 10, 15 seconds, you know, you have the darshan. And then you come out. And the temple room is small. It's very small, probably as big as this temple room. Then they have, that's the temple room, there's like a sitting area and stuff in front of the deity. So if like this was the deity, then this would be like the area, the temple room. And you can come and you can sit there. Westerners are not prohibited at all. And you can sit and chant, you know. But every day they have some kind of festivity going on, you know. And they have another side of the temple room which is also bigger. And, yeah. They also distribute free prasadam every day to thousands of people. Thousands. They have like a big hall. I've taken that prasadam before. So that deity is like so famous in that whole region. And the year that I was there was a special year. I think that was 2015 I was there, in the winter from 2015 to 2016. And it was a day of pariyaya. They have a system in the temple because Madhvacharya established 8 mutts. And they have their locations all surrounding that area. 8 different mutts, 8 different temples. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvi Kabir Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai. And those 8 mutts, they're like a big house in a circular going around that whole square. There's some devotees, they go to a particular mutt to take prasadam at that mutt. They give a donation, right? And that year was a huge festival. They had big billboards all over the city because what happens is that each one of those mutts gets a chance to worship the deity. I think it's for a year and a half or something like that, right? And then they rotate. So a year and a half times 8 is like 12, right? So every 12 years, there's what they call pariyaya. Pariyaya is when, again, they start the rotation, right? And so they had one of the sannyasis, because these are all these mutts are overseen by sannyasis, and even they have the next sannyasi who's sometimes in boyhood still, and they're trained that they're going to become the next acharya for that mutt. And also in the birthplace of Madhvacharya, they have like a school there for teaching them. This has been going on unbroken 800 years, more than 800 years. Very, very authentic. So there was one sannyasi who was very elderly, and he was getting into his 90s, and this was going to be his, I forget what number, pariyaya. You know, like he had been doing it from his boyhood. You know, when he became the acharya, he was the acharya of one of these mutts. And so it was like his 9th one, which practically never happened prior to that. So the whole city was decorated with posters of him. And you know, different businesses would purchase the poster and they'd give like a glorification of him, you know. And he's a very sweet person. I didn't meet him, but everyone who did, they told me he's very humble, very sweet person, quite learned. He looks a little bit like Gurudev, you know, that kind of body frame and everything. So that happened while I was there, and there was a big festival for like 3 days. And that place was just packed with lakhs of people coming, and it was like almost like a big carnival came to town, and they had all kinds of things set up, and so many eating places, and people came with their goods to sell, you know. So that was interesting.
Can you tell the story, Maharaj, of the tradition of why we see Krishna in that little, remember about the boy that would look at Krishna through the little hole?
Oh, you tell it, because I don't remember it.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
So there was this boy who was an outcast. He was from a lower caste.
Yeah.
So this is way back.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this boy who was an outcast. I don't remember exactly how many years back, but he was not allowed in the temple. But he was a very sincere boy, and he really sincerely wanted to see Krishna, the Thakurji. So he found this little hole in the back of the temple. So he would look at Krishna every day. He would come for darshan every day, until one day Thakurji turned around for him so that he could see him.
Okay.
So then that's why the tradition became that we would see Thakurji through this little window in representation of that pastime. And I think they even built like a statue of this boy outside. I don't know if I heard that,
Okay. Jai. Yeah, I vaguely remember that pastime.
Forgive me for being so dull, but is it that the deity of Gopal would move to the different temples? Is that the idea?
No. Oh, sorry to say. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. No. In each temple, they have their own deities of each mutt. And what happens is, when they get the opportunity to serve the Krishna deity in the temple, they bring their own deity from their mutt into that temple room. You don't really see that deity of theirs. But then they take over the service of everything 24 hours for the next year and a half or so, like that. That's how it works. So, Madhvacharya established 8 mutts, and he made his 8 prominent disciples in charge of those mutts as acharyas. So today, acharyas in the disciplic succession of all 8 prominent disciples, they take turns to serve in the main mutt, Sri Krishna mutt, for a period of 1 year on a rotational basis, a little bit more than a year. They follow very strict standards of worship to this date. There is also a sacred pond in the mutt premises. You can see that on the outside. No one is allowed to use the pond to wash their hands or feet, as the water is used for cooking for the Lord. And once, while Madhvacharya was on pilgrimage passing through Maharashtra along with his disciples, a local king was digging a big lake. The tyrannical king created a rule requiring whoever passed to participate in excavating mud from the pond. However, when Madhvacharya was confronted to take up this process, he first made the king submit to his own rule before proceeding. In other words, the king himself had to dig, right? So this is the end of his article on Magi Shukla Navami Titi. While writing a commentary on the Aitareya Upanishad, he left his body. So one thing is that Madhvacharya's philosophy, do you know the name of it? There are the 4 acharyas.
Is that Dvaita something like that?
No.
Vishishtadvaita?
Vishishtadvaita.
That's a good guess.
Wait. No, wait. Dvaita. Dvaita Advaita. Yes. Because his philosophy, as you see in his photo, he's sitting and he has his fingers like this. Do you know why? Meaning what? Huh?
Duality.
But what is meaning? What is 2?
Krishna and the Jiva.
Yeah, Krishna and the Jiva, Brahman and Jiva. Because Shankaracharya says they're one. But Madhvacharya that's why he said when he was 5 years old, I shall refute the philosophy of Shankaracharya. And he did. He wrote something like 37 different books and very deep philosophical literatures. Such a great, great scholar he was. And you know that who did Madhvacharya, whose disciple is Madhvacharya? Who's his guru? Do you know?
Trying to remember the song.
Vyasadeva. Krishna Haite Chaturmukhe, Hoy Krishna Sevam Mukhe, Naradera. I haven't sung this song very often. Then Narada. Narada Hoite Vyas, Madhvacharya Vyasadas. So how is it that in the Kali Yuga, 5,000 years after Krishna's being on the planet, that Madhvacharya became the disciple of Vyasadeva? Did you know? You ever heard the story? That's one of the great stories about in his life, because he traveled all over India, you know. So he had this desire to go to the Himalayan mountains and to go to the very ashram in the Himalayan mountains of Srila Vyasadeva himself, you know. And so, where is that? It's way up high, Badrik Ashram, and near to the Badrik Ashram is the place where to this very day Srila Vyasadeva is there. But no one can see him unless he wants to reveal himself to someone. So Madhvacharya, being the, transcendentally empowered personality, Shakti Avatar, he wanted to go there and meet Vyasadeva directly and also recite to Vyasadeva his own commentary that he wrote on Bhagavad Gita, I believe it was. So it describes how he was going up into the mountains, and he had one disciple that was coming with him. The other disciples were remaining below, that were traveling with him throughout India. But this one disciple came with him, and they were going higher, higher, higher. And Madhvacharya, at a certain point, because he was like leaping in bounds and going higher, higher, and this disciple could not keep up with him. And then a snowstorm began. And so the disciple was in very great dilemma, and practically speaking, he could have died. But then Madhvacharya, he took the disciple and he did some mystic thing and caused the disciple to go all the way down to this ashram, miles below, you know, and he ended up there. Then Madhvacharya continued on his own. So when he came there, then Vyasadeva came and revealed himself in front of Madhvacharya. And then Madhvacharya remained there for a short time, maybe 24 hours or whatever. And then he recited his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Vyasadeva gave his blessings and sanction for that. And Madhvacharya became the disciple of Vyasadeva. So just see how empowered our acharyas are in our line. They're not ordinary human beings, you know. And Madhvacharya in particular, he came in the sampradaya of who? Brahma, Lord Brahma. And because of Lord Brahma's particular relationship with Krishna, when Krishna was on the planet, so Lord Brahma also spoke Brahma Samhita, in which he reveals so many of the rasa-filled qualities and aspects of Krishna throughout the Brahma Samhita. And it's also described how Krishna's flute came into the ears of Brahma, the first created being, and it entered into his ears as Kam Gayatri Mantra. Kam Gayatri Mantra. So the whole disciplic succession of Lord Brahma has this mood of Madhurya Rasa, Kam Gayatri Mantra. And therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he could have accepted any of the different acharya lines of the four acharyas, Lord Shiva's, four Kumaras, Lakshmi Devi, but he chose Madhvacharya and that line. And it's described by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Have you read that little book, the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya? Very valuable. We'll be reading it when the days of parikrama are coming. So we'll be reading that book. But in the island of Rudradvip, right, each one of the four Vaishnavacharyas who were living at different time periods, they each individually came there to Navadvip. Lord Nityananda is telling this to Jiva Goswami. And when they came to Navadvip, each one of them were met by their sampradaya personalities, who they took shelter in their sampradaya. And then they were also given a darshan of Lord Gauranga. You know, like Madhvacharya was 300 years before the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ramanujacharya was the oldest, something like 1200 years ago, you know. So, but each of them came to Navadvip Dham, and then Mahaprabhu revealed his golden form to them and spoke to them and said, yes, you will take shelter of such and such sampradaya, and you will also write commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And in this way, you will serve me. Then when I appear, you will also appear in my Leelas. So each one of the four Vaishnava Acharyas says, that's why without coming in the line of one of the four Vaishnava Acharyas, no one's mantra will be effective. Sampradaya vihina ye mantraste nishvala mata. Nishvala means no fruit will come unless someone takes diksha of the mantras in Sampradaya, one of these four Sampradayas. Yeah.
Weren't they given the proper conception that Mahaprabhu was told only to preach what they were supposed to do?
No, he didn't tell them about that. He told them you should write your commentary, your own commentary. Something more, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, and then he revealed his form, that I will appear in this golden form. And when they saw the form of Mahaprabhu, they became completely overwhelmed with prema. And then he told them, so don't reveal this to anyone, but you should preach your own philosophy. And Mahaprabhu actually accepted two principles from the philosophies. Each one of the acharyas had their own separate principles of philosophy, and he accepted two from each one of these four acharyas. There's also a list of Madhvacharya, but we've run out of time now, of his 10 principles of his philosophy. And that's one reason why Mahaprabhu embraced the philosophy of Madhvacharya, because it was very akin to his own philosophy, Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. So all glories to our Sampradaya Acharya, Sri Sri Madhvacharya, incarnation of Hanuman, and also Bhima, and also Lord Shiva, because Hanuman is partly Lord Shiva. So all glories to the Shakti Avesh Avatar, Sri Madhvacharya Prabhu Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. And tomorrow is Ram Anujacharya, his disappearance day, 2 days in a row. And the day after that, Ekadasi, the day after that, Vrahadvadashi, and